Hello there. Welcome to Planet America's Fireside Chat. I'm John Barron.
And I'm Licciardello.
Well, just as soon as this week's presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump ended, the debate over just how bad it was for Donald Trump began.
Yes, Trump snapped a couple times, but that's not what the regular voter cares about.
Kamala Harris had a really good night. Donald Trump had a really bad night. And her upward trajectory is going to continue.
Kamala Harris dodging like crazy on her radical record, spewing out canned, rehearsed lines and polished talking points.
She got up there and she put him in his place. She baited him and then she spanked him.
Vice President Harris did what she came to do. She really destroyed the former president on that stage tonight.
But then Trump did something that candidates do not do if they had a good night. He went into the media spin room after the debate, where campaigns usually send their surrogates, their campaign spokespeople, to spin for the candidate, not the actual candidate. But he went in there to try and convince reporters that he hadn't really come off second best.
This was my best debate. I thought it was very good. I thought she was very weak on foreign policy. She was very weak on the border, and I'm very happy with it.
Kamala Harris, meanwhile, was kind of spiking the football, immediately challenging Trump to another debate. So, on social media, Trump then said, well, the very fact that they're asking for another debate proves that I won this one.
She was beaten badly last night. Every poll has us winning. In one case, 92-8, so why would I do a rematch?
And there were some polls going around that did have Trump winning overwhelmingly, almost 90%, according to conservative news outlet Newsmax, who ran a Twitter poll, which in polling terms tells us absolutely nothing about who won the debate, but something about who watches Newsmax, i.e. Trump supporters. Meanwhile, actual polls with a scientific sample, including one from a Republican firm, had Harris winning by an average margin of 23 points. That is a reflection of what actually happened. Campaigning earlier today in North Carolina, Kamala Harris said that she and Trump owe it to the American people to have another debate.
This election and what is at stake could not be more important. Donald Trump intends to end the Affordable Care Act. And as Stacey mentioned, you heard what he said in the debate. He has no plan to replace it. He said, concepts of a plan.
And kudos to you, Chaz Licciardello, because on Wednesday night's Planet America, you picked that as the soundbite. Yeah, well, as for whether there's going to be another debate, Trump says no.
There will be no third debate.
Now, whether, in fact, it's as definitive as that seems is very much an open question because, well, Trump has a habit of saying he's not going to do something, but if he needs to do it, i.e. prove that he didn't really lose, and he did really lose, then he might be lured back into this.
Yeah, look, if I recall, there wasn't going to be a debate on ABC until there's one on Fox, and then Trump changed his mind.
Right.
He can change his mind very easily, just like that.
And I think it will happen probably because both of them probably need it to happen. Trump needs to try and do better, and Harris still needs to complete the task of introducing herself to the American people in this very truncated campaign.
I think we'll see. I think it depends on the polling. I think if Harris gets a 1 or 2 point bounce out of this debate, then Trump is going to be behind. He will be feeling desperate, and then he'll do anything. He'll go anywhere. But if it's 50-50, Trump's going to want to turn up on Fox.
Yeah.
And Harris will say no, because she always controls what she does. And then there won't be a debate unless Trump concedes. He's not going to concede unless he's desperate, which is why I say she needs the bounce, I think, for the debate to happen.
Yeah, and look, it's very, very early days. There are only a handful of national polls that have come out since Yes.
Well, I'm going to pull you up on that.
What's that?
There's a lot more than a handful.
Really?
There were like 5 polls in 1 second on the spin floor the other night after the debate. Did you see what Trump had to say?
Why wouldn't you look at her? The polls are indicating that we got 90%, 60%, 72%, 71%, and 89%.
Where are you getting these numbers from?
Very good.
Great question.
Yeah, very good.
It wasn't even pretending they were real polls. Just threw out just random numbers. By the way,
I can tell you where he's getting those polls from, but you can't say that word on television.
Just before you move on, I should say that You're saying that was a bad sign, him turning up to spin for himself, especially that badly?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad sign. But what was an even worse sign was when Laura Loomer, who was a member of his team, tweeted out after the debate that she thought Kamala Harris had cheated by using these Nova H1 audio earrings to sort of cheat her way to victory. And you don't start tweeting that people cheated unless you think you lost, right? So that's not a great sign from someone in his team. I should also say, by the way, in case you're wondering if she did cheat, a few things. First of all, those earrings don't appear to exist in the real world.
Right.
The very review site that she quoted there said it's unclear if anyone actually received a set of Nova H1 earrings. At this point, it seems like the company was simply a Kickstarter scam. Also, when you look closely at it, they don't look that similar anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a callback to, I think it was the 2004 debate between John Kerry and George W. Bush, where some Democrats alleged that George Bush was only half decent in that debate because he had a little bulge in the back of his jacket which looked like a mic receiver or earpiece receiver, and they thought that he was wired for sound as well.
Can I just say, for those who don't work in television, we use these earpieces. If someone was talking to me in the middle of a debate, I would step on this thing because they drive you crazy. You can only hear a couple of words at a time. It would be impossible to conduct a debate being told everything to say through an earpiece.
Yeah, and speaking of being in someone's ear, Laura Loomer has been in Donald Trump's ear. Some of you may not know her. She's a kind of far-right conservative pundit, very active on social media. She's been retweeted and retruthed a number of times by Donald Trump. She was travelling with Trump this week, including travelling on his plane when he went to September 11th commemorations in Pennsylvania and New York this week. Laura Loomer is she's a 9/11 denialist. She says it was an inside job, and she's wacky. And as we're about to hear, she's been really kind of playing up the crazy on Trump's side. So we had this situation where Donald Trump is, I mean, we're so used to it after 9 years, but Donald Trump is saying black is white. He lost this debate. There is empirical evidence that says the overwhelming majority of people who watched it thought that he lost this debate. It's a 50-50 country. 63% say that Harris won. 37% say that Trump won.
On Fox News, they said he lost the debate.
Lindsey Graham said he lost the debate. One of his biggest sycophantic supporters, Lindsey Graham, said he lost this debate. He lost it because he wasn't prepared. He tried to just sort of riff it and jazz it and ad-lib it, and it didn't work. And Kamala Harris came prepared and, you know, knocked him around that debate stage after a start. You know, you could say first 10 minutes was maybe a wash. It was a draw. Harris was a bit nervous. Trump was reasonably solid, but he went right off the rails, including, as we'll talk about in a moment, about cats and dogs. But before we do, there was, hot on the heels of the debate, as all those positive reviews for Harris are coming in, Taylor Swift was at home on social media saying that, well, I've seen enough, I'm endorsing Kamala Harris. And she did sign off on her Instagram post there, rather pointedly, describing herself as a childless cat lady. That thing has certainly been chasing J.D. Vance and Donald Trump around, hasn't it?
Yeah, certainly has. I suppose the question is, does it make a difference? Because traditionally you'd say celebrities don't make differences. Like Hillary Clinton had pretty much every celebrity in the world supporting her during her campaign, and it didn't work. So, I'm kind of torn on this one, and I'm interested to know what you think, because on one hand you go, well, any fan of Taylor Swift already knows she's a Democrat. Her saying vote Democrat ain't making a difference. She didn't even say vote Democrat. She said vote whoever you want, but I'm going to vote Democrat. I don't think that'll be news to any of her supporters. But on the other hand, she might remind people to register.
Yes.
And that makes a difference, especially for young voters, like who are low propensity registering voters. She might prompt them to register, and then more of them might vote.
Yes, and there is certainly, in the month of September, it's basically your last chance. Some states have same-day registration, but in a lot of states you have to register well in advance in order to be able to vote. Early voting is starting in some states in the next week or two, absentee and mail-in voting and so on. So now's the time to get people to register to vote. The question is, yes, does she then say in late October, early November, vote for Kamala Harris? Does she give it another go, or is it just a small intervention right now? Where I think, the point has been made, look, a lot of Taylor Swift fans are not old enough to vote. So there is that, and that's possibly true.
She's been around for 20 years.
She's been around for 20 years, and also she's multi-generational. You know, but I don't know a lot about Taylor Swift. Couldn't sing a song, but I do know that it's not just kids, but it is their parents, particularly their mothers and even their grandmothers. And that, you know, I know of 3 generations of women in families that were going to see Taylor Swift. So maybe not the young Swiftie, but the middle-aged Swiftie and the late middle-aged or older Swiftie. They're the ones who this could convince them, you know, if they're thinking particularly about fertility management and abortion rights and so on, that this could be something that they want to do, and that this could give her an extra maybe 0.5% boost amongst female voters over Trump, and that could be decisive in a close election. So I don't rule out the possibility because she is the biggest star in the world.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's hard to poo-poo it because she is so big. But just everything tells me that celebrities don't cause people to vote. But we'll see. Yeah,
and it is hard to quantify. But if you go out on the campaign trail, particularly in the primary season, every presidential candidate has the 10 celebrities they can get together to try and get people to events, to draw crowds, to get their message. People are more likely to go to a rally with either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris if a famous celebrity is speaking or performing for them.
Oh, yeah.
And in some ways, Donald Trump, he's combined the two. He's the celebrity candidate. Harris is becoming that as well. Barack Obama was that. But, so celebrity star power, do some candidates need it more than others? Yes, probably. Does Harris need it? Possibly not.
If Taylor Swift turns up to a rally, that will be a very big rally.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
Yeah, it certainly will be. But without doubt, the weirdest moment in this week's debate was this one. While Trump was talking about illegal immigration, he wove into this claim.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. The people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
television. But the people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Now, being fact-checked by the moderators of the debate clearly bothered Trump, who claimed that this became a 3-on-1 debate, which was kind of his reason for losing, even though he didn't lose. But when reporters asked Trump about people's dogs being eaten by migrants after the debate, he still wasn't backing down.
Oh, that's true. You take a look at it. No,
it's nonsense. The local authorities say.
Well, you could check it out.
Do you think you're going to lose?
Check with the authorities.
So reporters did check with authorities.
Many Verify viewers reached out to ask whether this is actually happening. So we went to these sources to get an answer. There is no evidence to support these claims. Springfield City Manager Brian Heck said in a recorded statement on Wednesday.
It is disappointing that some of the narrative surrounding our city has been skewed by misinformation circulating on social media and further amplified by political rhetoric in the current highly charged presidential election cycle.
So no evidence cats and dogs are being eaten by migrants in Springfield, Ohio or anywhere else. Also in the spin room, Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, who claims that his office has been contacted by people who think their pets have been eaten by migrants.
City officials have said that that's not true.
City officials have said that's not true. That's not actually accurate. The city manager said there's no verifiable evidence. A lot of residents on the ground have said that there is.
So JD actually said the right thing at the start there. City officials say there is no evidence. But then he went on to say some people say there is evidence, just as, of course, some people say they've been probed by aliens and some people have been served at the House of Pancakes by an 89-year-old Elvis Presley. It is quite astonishing to me, Chaz, that a potential president and vice president of the United States are spreading this rumour, this urban myth that is also obviously, clearly racist and potentially damaging.
I can't believe I'm doing this. Let's look at these claims.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first of all, I should explain how this happened. There have been, for some time, there have been some reports of Haitians in Springfield eating the geese in the local park area. For instance, this fellow here in a local community meeting had this to say.
They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them like.
There was also a police report registered a little while back, well before this controversy, where someone made similar claims.
I see a group of Haitian people. There was about 4 of them. They all had geese in their hand. They got away.
How many geese did they have?
They each had 1.
Okay, and there's been 1 or 2 other similar kinds of situations where someone had a report, not provable, but just someone said this at some point in time over the last few weeks. Okay.
And how they could tell somebody's nationality just because they were standing there with an alleged goose is another question.
You do make a fair point. But then this photo started to get sent around. This photo here, allegedly a Haitian carrying a dead goose, except for it's not a Haitian carrying a dead goose in the town. It's someone from Columbus, Ohio, a completely different place, who is not Haitian, carrying a dead goose from about 4 months ago, 3 months ago. It was on Reddit. And it's got nothing to do with this story whatsoever. And the person who put that picture up now severely regrets putting that picture up because he's taking part unintentionally in this racist witch hunt, right?
Right.
Okay, but the first 2 clips I played, at the very least, they were before this controversy. They appear to be real reports. Whether they're true or not, there's nothing altogether, but they are actual people doing these actual reports. Okay, so that's the geese.
Yes.
But then it morphed a little bit, and there was a viral video about a week ago of a lady who was arrested for eating a cat. This lady.
Smile for me. Smile with your teeth. Go like this. Did you eat that cat? Did you eat it? No, why'd you kill it?
Okay, so that lady was arrested for animal cruelty, for killing and eating a cat. That lady is not from Springfield.
Right.
That lady's from Canton, which is a completely different place in Ohio. We're 175 miles away. She's not Haitian. She's just a random person who ate a cat. And that became a viral story at exactly the same time as this Facebook post became a viral story as well. The critical part of this story, which may or may not be true, it involves them saying that one day, their neighbour came home from work. As soon as she stepped out of her car, looked towards a neighbour's house where Haitians live, and saw her cat hanging from a branch like you do a deer for butchering, and they were carving it up to eat. Now, this is a completely unverified post, okay? There is no reason to believe that post at all. And the fact that the police have said that there have been 0 reports from anyone, Haitian, native born, whatever, anyone stealing, harming or eating pets at all. 0 reports. Suggests that that's probably not true, that Facebook report, because why would they report to Facebook but not the police?
Good question.
Yeah, so I'm a bit sus about that.
A bit.
But those 2 viral bits got together, conflated them, and then they started saying, look, the Haitians are out there killing people's cats. And then before you knew it, Elon Musk got involved. He elevated it. Amplified it. And then before you know it, there are AI memes of Donald Trump saving cats and geese all over Twitter, okay? So that's how we got to where we are now. I don't trust any of that. Maybe the geese is true. We don't know. Cats and dogs, no evidence whatsoever. Right? But there is a real story in all this, which we should actually focus on more than the cats and the geese. And that is that Springfield was a dying city until 2020. It had about 60,000 people in it at that point in time. And then a Japanese company moved in, a Japanese auto parts company, and they had lots and lots of jobs. And they needed workers. And a number of Haitian people came to get those jobs. There were 8,000 jobs that required new workers. And over time, it wasn't just that company. Other companies moved in. Springfield's become revitalised. More and more jobs. And since then, 20,000 Haitians have moved in the last 4 years. And I need to emphasise, these people, they're legally there. They're not illegal immigrants. People are confusing this with illegal immigration. These people have got temporary protection visas.
Yes.
They have work visas. They are allowed to be there to work. Apparently, they're very good workers. In all the reports we've seen on this story, there's always an employer going, they're great workers. So they're taking part in the community, they're paying their taxes, they're doing what they're meant to do. No problems. But Any community that starts at 60,000 has 20,000 new people enter over
Sure.
4 years is going to have some growing pains.
Yeah.
And that's where the New York Times comes in. The New York Times wrote about this, and what they said, the Haitians have helped revitalise Springfield, assembling car engines at Honda, running vegetable packing machines and loading boxes at distribution centres. But the speed and the volume of arrivals have put pressure on housing, schools and hospitals. At the Free Medical Clinic, there's been a 13-fold increase in Haitian patients between 2021 and 2023, overwhelming its staff and budget. At the Community Health Centre, expenditures on translation services jumped to an estimated $436,000 this year from $43,000 in 2020. And at the local schools, nearly 350 new students registered for elementary and middle school. So this is a real issue. It's not a racist issue. This is a real issue of how to manage a town which is growing very rapidly. The city manager, who's been quoted all over the media this week saying the cats and dogs thing is not a real story, he was on Fox News about 3 months ago talking about this very problem.
It's taxing our infrastructure. It's taxing public safety. It's taxing our schools. It's taxing healthcare. And as J.D. Vance spoke on, it's taxing our housing. We had a housing shortage well before this immigration crisis that's impacted our community, and this has just made it 100 times worse. And so it's setting communities like Springfield up to fail.
Okay, so tensions are growing. It wasn't helped by a car accident last year that with a Haitian ploughing into a school bus killed a kid. But the fact is, there's a real story there, but this isn't actually even the one bit I want to focus on. The bit I want to focus on in particular is what's happened to that story. Because J.D. Vance has been pushing this for 6 months. He is the senator for Ohio, where this is taking place, and he's been talking about the growing pains in Springfield for a while, and he referred to that this week in reference to those memes. This is what he said.
And I think it's interesting, Caitlin, that the media didn't care about the carnage wrought by these policies until we turned it into a meme about cats. And that speaks to the media's failure to care about what's going on in these communities. If we have to meme about it to get the media to care, we're going to keep on doing it because the media should care about what's going on.
That's interesting. Read between the lines. He's saying, I don't care if this cat story is untrue because it's drawing attention to the story I want to be talking about. And it reminded me very much of last week when Trump said something extremely controversial about school children and transgender people. Some would say extremely insensitive and kind of nutty. He said this.
Can you imagine you're a parent and your son leaves the house and you say, Jimmy, I love you so much. Go have a good day in school. And your son comes back with a brutal operation. Can you even imagine this?
That makes no sense. Obviously, people
doesn't happen. It's not real.
Aren't conducting operations at schools. Yeah. That's just nuts. He first made that claim last week at the Mums for Liberty conference. Yeah. Elon Musk liked that one as well. He amplified that one as well. It became a big controversy. Mums for Liberty were asked about that, and this is what they said. The founder said, "Are kids getting surgery in school? No, they're not. But I'm still thankful to President Trump for making the claim. His remark has drawn attention to the important issue of schools facilitating children's social transitions without parental consent. It grabbed your attention, and we're talking about it now, and that makes me very happy." So here's where we're at, John. When people want to make a claim that isn't getting attention, they just make a different claim, which is insane. Elon Musk gets involved. He amplifies it. All of a sudden, there's memes everywhere. People are going crazy. And no one cares that the second claim is garbage. It gets the attention to the first claim, and you're rewarded for spreading crap all over the news landscape. This is how discourse is working in 2024. And it's happening over and over again, which means it's going to happen more. And I'm really worried if we don't get a hold of this, it's not going anywhere good.
No, and you can't escape the fact that whether it is the lie that children are getting gender reassignment surgery when they go into school and come back a different gender, or that Haitian immigrants in a small town in Ohio are eating people's cats and dogs, there is no doubt that that is transphobic and racist. And that just because there is an exaggeration, a lie that is being peddled by a would-be president and vice president of the United States, you can't turn around and justify that by saying, oh, well, they're not eating cats, but there is a housing shortage. So now you're talking about the housing shortage. It's like, no, we're still talking about the cats and the fact that you as a presidential candidate are claiming that people are eating cats. It is really a new low. It is a sign of desperation from the Trump-Vance campaign. And bear in mind, you know, Trump has not been known for going particularly high on the issue of race or sexuality or gender identity over the years. But this is getting desperate, and that it's being said on a debate stage and in a spin room, and that JD Vance is complicit in all of this, and that lunatics like Laura Loomer, who, by the way, has also been promoting this conspiracy theory in Trump's ear as well. Laura Loomer is probably the reason why Trump said it during the debate, because she's been amplifying it on social media as well. Yeah. So Trump is surrounding himself with the craziest of the crazies now. This isn't like 2016 or 2020 when there were grown-ups in the room, when there were serious people or just mainstream conservatives and Republicans looking to further a small government agenda. We've now got the fringes of the internet in one ear and the other ear of Donald Trump right now. This is a very concerning time.
But leaving aside Trump, how do you stop this happening? Because it works. Yeah. That's the thing. The person who spread this to begin with, they're not being punished. They're being rewarded. Yeah. The story they wanted to promote is being promoted.
You consistently point out the fact that this is a lie, and it is a lie with a racist underpinning, because at the end of the day, if there are growing problems in Springfield, Ohio, you don't help those growing problems by othering, demonising, dehumanising a migrant population who are just there to work because they were invited in by the government to do it, and by suggesting that these people are, you know, crazy voodoo, pet-eating monsters. I mean, that's appalling. And for a president or a vice president to be suggesting that is pretty bad stuff. But for more on the fallout from this week's presidential debate and Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris, we're joined from New York by Democratic political strategist Julie Roginsky. Julie, welcome to the Fireside Chat.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's start with the endorsement of Kamala Harris by Taylor Swift, just moments after the debate this week. Do you think that is going to have any meaningful impact?
Well, typically, I don't think celebrity endorsements matter much, but this is the big exception. Look, Taylor Swift has literally moved economies wherever she travels in the world. She has a cult-like following among Swifties, for which I am too old to really be able to appreciate. But, you know, she's the kind of person whose base of fans really overlaps with the base that Kamala Harris needs to get out, which are millennial women and men, but mostly women and Gen Z men and women. And so, you know, this is an election that's really going to come down to turnout. I don't know that there's many persuadable voters left, but there are voters who may or may not be coming out to vote. And to the extent that Taylor Swift can get her supporters to register to vote and then to vote for Kamala Harris, that could make a huge difference both in Taylor Swift's home state of Pennsylvania and around the country as well.
Why do you think the campaign got Taylor Swift to endorse Harris on debate night? Wasn't that just stepping on a good debate, and they would be much better off with Taylor Swift endorsing Harris closer to Election Day?
I don't think this was coordinated with Taylor Swift. I don't think the campaign has made it very clear. Joe Biden, when he was still in the race, had made it very clear that he would love Taylor Swift's endorsement. She was not forthcoming. It was not forthcoming. It was not forthcoming. And then Taylor Swift put it out on her own timeline. So I don't think there's any coordination between what Taylor Swift was doing and what the campaign was doing. And so, look, I don't know to which extent her voters care so much about when she endorsed. When she did endorse, which was just a few minutes after the debate was over, I think something like close to 350,000 people went to the website to register to vote that she linked to in her endorsement announcement. So I don't think she's stepping at anything. Again, she's like the Beatles. I think there is a whole incredible group of people out there in this country and around the world who just hang on whatever Taylor Swift says. And so if Taylor Swift told them at 3 o'clock in the morning to register to vote and to come out and vote for Kamala Harris, that's when they would have done it. I don't really think it matters in terms of timing.
Well, from Swifties to Cheneys, Dick and Liz Cheney also endorsed Kamala Harris this week as two signs of neoconservatism. Are they going to change any votes in this election?
I think it gives permission to some of these Republicans who are maybe on the fence about voting for a Democrat to say it's okay. It's not just Liz and Dick Cheney. It's also Alberto Gonzalez, who was the Attorney General in George Bush's campaign. and a whole host of other Republicans who traditionally have never voted for a Democrat, but this time around understand the threat to not just this country, but to the world that Donald Trump poses. And so I think from that perspective, if you look at places like the collar counties of Philadelphia, which Pennsylvania, as you know, is a must-win state for either campaign. And these collar counties, which are the counties that ring Philadelphia, the largest city in Pennsylvania, tend to go back and forth. Bucks County, Northampton County, I'm getting very much into the weeds here, but they are very important to know about and to pay attention to on election night because they hold the key to this election to some extent. Erie County, which is in the northwest part of Pennsylvania. These are counties that really go back and forth election to election. And there are a lot of suburban Republican women specifically, and men as well, who live there who may not have thought about voting for Kamala Harris before. But when somebody like Liz and Dick Cheney, who are just diehard Republicans, who've been Republicans throughout the course of most people's lifetimes, Dick Cheney goes all the way back on a national level to the Nixon administration, to the Ford administration, to the 1970s. When somebody like that tells you it's okay to vote for a Democrat, you know, enough of those people might say, okay, I've never done this before, but if the Cheneys are doing it, maybe it's okay for me to do too.
Now, one of the big questions about Harris's campaign so far has been her decision to conduct 0 press conferences and very few interviews. Do you expect that strategy to continue all the way to Election Day? And do you think it's reasonable for a presidential candidate to subject themselves to so little scrutiny?
You know, I think she is doing things on her own timeline, which means that she is giving interviews. She's just not giving interviews to the mainstream media that wants them. But she did sit down with Tavis Smiley, who's a very prominent African-American journalist. She has been speaking to Univision, which is a big station here in the United States that appeals to Latino voters. And so she's been talking to much more kind of niche outlets. I would urge her actually to go and speak to local reporters around the country in those states, in those swing states where she has to win. So go to Wisconsin and speak to reporters in Milwaukee. Go to Pennsylvania and speak to reporters in the Allentown media market. Go to Georgia and speak to reporters in the Atlanta media market. Go to Arizona and speak to people in the Phoenix media market. I think those are the most trusted kinds of journalists. I mean, poll after poll shows that people may not trust national journalists, but they do trust the local hometown journalists who come into their living rooms every night and talk to them about traffic and weather and so on. And so I think if she were to have a conversation with them, I think it would really help her. And I think it would be something that could potentially transcend not just this notion that she isn't speaking to reporters, but also allow her to talk to an audience that maybe would be trusting more of those journalists than they would of the people on the national level who've been clamoring for these interviews.
So, Julie, this week Kamala Harris was judged by the polls to be the winner of a debate that close to 70 million Americans watched live, and tens of millions more will see highlights and clips in the days ahead, no doubt. Is that enough, therefore, for her to say, OK, I've reached out to those undecided voters, or is there more that she needs to do between now and November?
Well, she should not rest on her laurels because debates come and debates go. But by tomorrow, there's going to be some other news cycle that's going to kind of wipe this debate out of people's minds. Look, she had a lot more to gain and to lose from this debate than Trump did. People know what they think about Donald Trump. I truly don't think there are too many undecided voters anymore. There are voters who probably have made up their minds already, and they're just debating whether to vote or not vote at all. But she had a lot to lose in the sense that about 30% of the electorate said before this debate they didn't know enough about her, despite the fact that she's been vice president. She hasn't been out in front of the cameras as much as the president has been, certainly not as much as Donald Trump has been. And so from that perspective, I think she truly needed to acquit herself well. She did. She passed the test. She, you know, as you might say, she kind of completed the assignment, which was to introduce herself to a national audience. There were about, I think, close to 70 million people watching. So that's obviously the largest audience that she'll ever have this cycle. But I also think it's important for her to be able to continue that trajectory. And so she needs to not just say, OK, I did a good job on this debate, so therefore I'm going to go and do my own thing or leave it to ads and paid media to take care of it. She does need to get out there and speak to voters more. Now, going to rallies is important. Having those rallies be covered is important. But as I said, I think she also should probably consider sitting down with local journalists and talking specifically about local issues. Now, look, I don't know what the local issue is in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm not from there. I don't live there. But those journalists do. And if she can go and be as well prepared as she was for this debate, and she was deeply prepared to talk about local issues that are specific to those states, specific to those areas, I think she'll clearly score points for herself by doing that.
Finally, polling suggested that Harris's candidacy has both increased the salience of the abortion issue and also increased the advantage that Democrats have over Trump on that particular issue. Then in the debate, Harris really scored some points on Trump, I thought, with respect to abortion. So just how big an issue is abortion shaping up to be in this election? Could it possibly rival the economy?
I don't know if it's going to rival the economy, but it's huge. And it's huge and it transcends political partisanship. I mean, I talked earlier about those suburban Republican women. Well, those women, a lot of them will vote for her because of abortion rights. And it's one thing to say that we're going to ban abortion. It's something that Democrats have kind of always said Republicans were planning on doing and Republicans always ran on. And then it happened. And it happened thanks to Donald Trump. It didn't just happen sui generis. It actually happened because Donald Trump hand-selected 3 really right-wing justices, put them on the Supreme Court, and they overturned Roe versus Wade, which was our law, basically governing abortion access. If you're a woman, you understand this issue on a very visceral level, and I think that's not just related to your political affiliation. I think the vast majority of women in this country understand that if you get pregnant and something happens and you're unable to carry that baby to term, you should not have to wait until you're literally bleeding out and on the verge of sepsis and death to be able to address that issue.
Julie Roginsky, thank you for having a fireside chat with us.
Thank you so much.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Now, we mentioned some migrant-based malarkey just before, but here's an extra helping.
There's more?
There's more. It all started when the latest job figures came out, and Trump focused on one particular aspect of those job figures.
Native-born Americans, we lost 1.3 million jobs, while foreign-born Americans were able to take all of those jobs. So foreigners coming in illegally, largely illegally, into our country, took the jobs of native-born Americans. And I've been telling you that's what's going to happen, because we have millions and millions of people pouring into our country, many from prisons and jails and mental institutions and insane asylums. Traffickers, human traffickers, women traffickers, sex traffickers, which, by the way, that's the kind of thing that people should be looking at because it's horrible.
Now, I should say he's conflating their foreign-born people who are legally here from foreign-born people who are illegally here. Right. There's about 12 million people illegally in America. There's about 60 million foreign-born people who are there legally.
Citizens who've lived there for decades.
Yes, totally. Okay. And he's conflating them, right? But those numbers I just gave you, Trump is working with, shall we say, different numbers.
They will have 100 million of these people in here with another 4 years. 100 million people. If you think you have a nice house, have a migrant enjoy your house, because a migrant will take it over. A migrant will take it over. It will be Venezuela on steroids.
His rhetoric is really getting unhinged. But as for the actual numbers of migrants who have come across the border over the last few years, these are the real numbers. The truth is that while America witnessed a record of at least 6.3 million migrant encounters in Biden's first 3 years, and the numbers have gone down since then, by the way, most of them were rejected immediately. Only 2.4 million more migrants were actually allowed in the country. For adding up the whole 4 years, there have been record numbers of deportations as well, but then some have snuck over and not been counted. Overall, people think between 2 and 3 million migrants have been added to the population over the last 4 years.
Making asylum claims, waiting to see whether they can live in America long term.
Whatever, exactly. Point is, it's not 100 million. All right. So Trump's working on, he's wrong about his overall numbers. But what about the job numbers he said at the beginning? Those, they're actually true. In the last 12 months, foreign-born workers' jobs are up just over 2 million in the last 12 months. Native-born jobs are down almost 400,000 in the last 12 months. So he's right about that. But what he's wrong about is why. He's acting like they're just coming and taking native-born workers' jobs. By the way, if you're an American citizen and you're there working as an accountant, and then someone from an insane asylum from Venezuela comes and takes your job, you can't have been a very good worker.
Fair point.
So what I'm showing you here is the participation rate of native-born workers and the foreign-born workers, and what I mean by that is what percentage of them is actually taking part in the workforce. You can see that this is by age band. This is how they collate those stats. You can see whatever age you're talking about, more foreign-born workers are indeed participating in the economy under Joe Biden. But have a look, whatever age group, more native-born workers are participating in the economy as well, as a percentage of the number of native-born workers. I know that was a bit complicated, so let me average out all those age bands for you. Have a look here, just averages. The foreign-born workers are participating more in the workforce than they used to under Biden, and the native-born workers are also participating more in the workforce under Biden. What's going on? What's going on is the reason the foreign-born workers are taking all the jobs is because there are no native-born workers to take those jobs because they're retiring. Without immigrants and their US-born children, the prime working age population, the 25 to 54s, would have shrunk by more than 8 million people between 2000 and 2023. Americans aren't having kids anymore, or at least not as many. Their population is being reduced. If you want more workers, you need to get them from overseas.
In very, very simple terms, the American baby boom has become an American retirement/dying boom. That's what's happening. It's just demographics. It's the same thing that happened to countries like France.
Yes.
And they then turned to mass immigration as well to solve that problem, with a lot of the associated social problems as well. We're seeing it play out. And unfortunately, whether it's in the United States or France, there are some politicians that are happy to try and divide the community along those lines for their own political benefit.
They are. It's happening in many countries around the world. The difference is there are lots of immigrants who want to go to America. And that works out for America. Their economy is growing faster than Europe because of that. And if you got rid of them, if you had a mass deportation tomorrow, what would happen is the economy would shrink. The foreign workers are contributing to the economy, and any suggestion otherwise is malarkey.
Indeed so. For more on the state of the presidential race and the fallout from this week's presidential debate, we're joined once again by Ford O'Connell. He's a Republican political strategist. He's worked on campaigns including McCain-Palin's White House bid in 2008. He was also a campaign surrogate for President Trump in 2020. Ford O'Connell, welcome back to the Fireside Chat.
Hey, always good to be with you guys.
So, Ford, do you think Donald Trump genuinely believes he won the debate this week, or is it more just bluster and denial of facts? Because all of the scientific polls clearly say he lost that debate.
Have you ever heard anyone ever say they lost a debate in American politics? That just doesn't exist. This is political communications 101. You're going to always say you won. Look, when I look at this debate, Kamala Harris exceeded expectations because she didn't speak gibberish like she has for the past 3.5 years. And essentially, Donald Trump missed some opportunities, particularly when it came to litigating the case on inflation and illegal immigration.
And what do you personally think has been the takeaway message from that debate 2 days down the track? Has there been any?
The takeaway message is that, Trump missed some serious opportunities to litigate the case on inflation and illegal immigration because essentially Kamala Harris danced around all those questions. Obviously, she won the cat and mouse games in terms of who can get under the other person's skin the fastest. But at the end of the day, the voters are a little still concerned about where Kamala Harris stands on the issues. She provided no information on inflation. She provided nothing on illegal immigration. And she doesn't explain, and a lot of undecided voters talk about this, how she's evolved on a series of positions to where she is right now.
And Ford, how potentially damaging do you think this is, Trump spreading this baseless rumour that Haitian immigrants are eating people's cats and dogs? It's not the kind of thing we typically expect from a potential president.
Well, let me put it this way. It's talking about Charlottesville and lying about that for 4.5 years, very presidential from Joe Biden. Look, I think there's a larger message here. This took place in a place called Springfield, Ohio, home to 60,000 people. And because of Biden and Harris's immigration plans, essentially 20,000 Haitian migrants have shown up in a town of 60,000. Okay, and when you tie it into what's going on in Aurora, Colorado, it's actually a pretty powerful message. If you really want to laugh, these pet memes of Donald Trump, that's millions of dollars of advertising for him. So I got to say, it's pretty smart, at least from a communications perspective.
Ford, so much of Trump's aura comes down to his ability to mentally dominate his opponents. Yet, in the case of Kamala Harris at the debate, she seemed at the least impervious to it. And a lot of people would say that she got inside Trump's head. So is that damaging to his image and even to his self-confidence?
I don't think it's going to be damaging to either. Obviously, if we have another debate, he's going to have some very different tactics. Look, when you look at the way presidential debates affect polls, there's not usually more than a 1 to 2 point shift in terms of the national polling average. So let me tell you, I think it's going to have a very minimal impact because, to your point, while Harris might have won these cat and mouse games, I think the debate overall was a wash for both of them.
Ford, of course, you worked on the 2008 McCain-Palin campaign. This debate reminded me a little bit of the town hall between John McCain and Barack Obama, where McCain could basically not even look at Barack Obama, not even use his name. He called him that one. What do you think is going on there? Because Trump was a little bit like that with Harris this week.
This is about body language and facial expressions. Actually, if you look at the tape closely, Kamala Harris actually lost that sort of aspect of the debate because she was making some outrageous faces every time Trump talked. Trump was basically trying to remain stone-faced every time she talked. We saw this with both John McCain and Barack Obama.
What do you think would need to happen from here for a second debate to occur?
Well, I think right now we are in a negotiating where Trump is saying we're not going to have a second debate. Kamala's team is basically saying, well, we'll have one in October. Well, we were actually supposed to have one in late September. That's what Joe Biden agreed to. I think what's happening here is you're seeing a negotiation where Trump is trying to push for the same rules as before, and he's also trying to push for more favorable moderators because basically the moderation on the ABC debate was the worst moderation, I think, in modern presidential debate history.
Of course, it was Trump who famously said that he would debate Joe Biden anywhere, anytime, and now it's like, yeah, I think that'll pretty much do me. Does he look weak if he doesn't change his mind and have a debate now?
No, I think that this is exactly right. If you've learned anything over the last 8 years, guys, the bottom line is this is a negotiation tactic on Donald Trump's part to get the rules and the moderators more in his favor. Look, I think it's a 50-50 proposition, but one thing's for sure, we're going to have a vice presidential debate.
So, Ford, assuming that there isn't another debate, are there any other big moments left in this campaign, or is it just a sprint to the finish line from here?
I think it's a sprint to a finish line, but I think what happens here, as long as Donald Trump is litigating the case on illegal immigration and on inflation, he's very well likely to win. And the question is, can he actually define Kamala Harris before she can, get out of the witness protection program that the media has her in? Because most Americans don't know Kamala Harris. That's why they're debating their own strategy as well, because right now, like it or not, Donald Trump is polling better than where he was at this point in either 2016 or 2020. And we've seen that he tends to outperform the polls.
So, Ford, now Kamala Harris has the endorsement of Taylor Swift. I wonder, in your view, do big celebrity endorsements like that, or the support that she also has from, well, pretty much everyone in Hollywood, with a few exceptions, all the late-night comedians on free-to-air TV in the United States, the hosts of The View, a lot of these shows, it's all very pro-Kamala Harris right now. Does that make a big difference, do you think?
Well, I'll say this, celebrity endorsements typically don't matter, but Taylor Swift is nothing to sneeze at. She's got 284 million Instagram followers. Here's what I'll say about that. If you need Taylor Swift to decide who you're voting for, then you probably should have your vote taken away. And while I'll say this is that, if you're a Taylor Swift fan and you want to keep her tickets and merchandise affordable, you should probably vote for Donald Trump, not Kamala Harris, because if Kamala Harris gets in the White House, those tickets and that merchandise is going to be even more expensive.
Finally, Ford, in your view, is this election still just about 20,000 voters in Pennsylvania? Or is there still the possibility that someone could break away?
No, I think that this is exactly to your point. It's going to be a replay of 2016 and 2020, where somewhere between 40 to 70,000, votes decides who the 47th president of the United States. And I think you're absolutely right. At least at this juncture, whoever wins Pennsylvania at this point will be the 47th president of the United States.
Ford O'Connell, thank you very much indeed for having a fireside chat with us this week.
Oh, thanks, guys.
And that is all for another Fireside Chat. If you missed Planet America's post-debate special this week, you'll find it now on ABC iView, YouTube and Facebook.
And we'll be back on Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m. on ABC TV, and back here for another Fireside Chat, same time next week. And do not forget to pep in all the usual pod places. And by the way, happy birthday, Oscar.
Happy birthday. Bye.